In this class, we'll have a chance to move beyond training and theory to actual field production.
We'll build on the story planning and research process discussed in the previous lesson and show how to put those ideas into practice to create your film.
We'll have a chance to cover things like casting your film, choosing your locations, and ethical issues that must be considered in any documentary film. It's a lot to cover, but we hope and think you'll find it interesting and useful in the creation of your first films. Let's get into it. All pre-production planning starts with making a basic production plan. You're going to want to think about what elements are needed to tell the story and how to best capture them. You're also going to want to think about the roles on your team. A lot of times it makes a lot of sense to divide a team into roles of producer, cinematographer, writer, and editor. That's how most documentary films are made. It's a lot of work, and dividing the work amongst the team often makes a lot of sense. You'll also want to think about permissions. Is filming permitted in the places that you plan to go? Do you need a formal release? Generally you do. So you'll want to think about that and plan for that early in the process. You'll also want to think about communicating with your subjects. The best films are really made in partnership with the people that you're filming. You're helping them tell their story in a way that respects their wishes and their story. And having that open communication about what the film is, who it's going to be shown for, and the intended audiences are all a crucial part of that process.
Another thing to think about when you're creating a documentary film is ethical considerations. And this is something that will come up in many different ways. One of the ways in which you might think about it is, do I allow the subject of my film to review the edit before the video is finished? And there are different reasons why you would or wouldn't do that. Another question might be, do I show very sensitive parts of the process or the story that I'm sharing? And this is something that you'll want to discuss in your class to determine what are the best ways to go about some of these questions. Another thing that is very important are logistics and planning, and this is something that can make or break a shoot. So it's everything from the travel time needed to get to a location, the time needed to set up, the time needed to do an interview or get B-roll, and then putting that into a schedule, a very detailed schedule where you have a sense of what's happening moment to moment, hour to hour. If you don't go over elements like this, your production is sure to run astray, and believe me, that's something that you just don't want to get into. And then another thing is remote interviews, especially in today's world. You want to develop ways to film more professional remote interviews. And we're going to help you with thinking about some of the software that you might use, and also directing the talent or the subject that you're interviewing to give better responses on camera. We'll also think about some technical considerations such as lighting to get a better interview look, and also ways to download the video so that you have the highest quality for your edit.
It's also important to remember that finding events and new story angles is an ongoing process. Very often during the production itself, research is ongoing and new things come up. Very often they're unexpected and they can often add a lot to the story. You want to be on the lookout for those things. You'll also want to think about the locations that you're filming. Ideally, you should scout them before you go to film and think about what sort of angles and story angles are possible. You'll also want to coordinate with your hosts to be able to get access and work out logistics of having your crew enter the building, things like this. You'll always want to be thinking a lot about filming sequences. This is something we've already talked about in some of the other lessons, but it's very important to remember that you always want to start off with filming your establishing shot and then go in and film the details of whatever situation you're in. And film actions. Films are made about things happening, people going places. You want to be on the lookout for those sorts of situations. When you film events, there are also certain things to keep in mind. Often it's great to get a camera there early and film the setup so you can create a real sequence that has a beginning, middle, and end. And you'll also want to think about when you're filming sound up moments, i.e. interviews with people in the middle of the action. You want to remember that often the audio in this situation is going to be not so great. It might be powerful for use in your film, but you won't want to make a mistake of filming those with the idea that you'll be able to use those images and that audio in other parts of the film. And finally, we want you to always remember to have fun and be safe. The people you'll be filming with will appreciate it if you bring positive energy and good feelings to your production. And remember, be safe. It's only a movie. There's a lot of ways to tell that story. Don't do anything that will ever put you or the people around you in danger. Well, we hope this introduction to field production has been useful. In our next lessons, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of some more advanced camera techniques and also techniques for filming interviews in various situations.